We're in that time of year where you want to start the hike nice and early in the morning. It's going to be about 100 degrees today and feel about like 105. So we are out nice and early. It's a great morning. Most of our hike's going to be in the shade, so that at least helps. And there's a little bit of a breeze. So can't complain. Happy to be back on the trail again. This bridge is one of my favorite bridges across the AT. This bridge has quite a story behind it, and I have linked in the description below with a story about his life. He contributed a lot to the local AT club here, and he really fought to get this bridge built here and got the funding for it. It's a great bridge. It is almost August, so this time of year the canopy of leaves above me is usually pretty thick. So we're gonna see how well the GoPro's doing in the low light. Normally it's gonna have a little bit of shutter issues that'll create some odd motion blur when the stabilization is on, but I've tweaked my settings a little for this type of lighting today. So like right now I just walked into full-blown shade. We'll see how it does. This cliff over here that I'm about to walk up to normally has some waterfalls coming down it, and it looks completely dried up today. Right up here is where there's normally a waterfall coming down. It looks pretty dry. Yeah, right here, just a tiny trickle of water coming down from there. Normally there's a good bit of water spilling down and then coming right down by my feet here. Some neat spiderweb patterns being illuminated by the sun this morning. Primary tweak I made to my GoPro to offset the lower lighting today is I bumped the ISO max from my normal 400 up to 800. So I have tested out some QR codes that do some different things with the shutter speed. One of them in particular will make it so the shutter speed cannot get any lower than 2 stops above the frame rate or 3. So that normally is supposed to fix the motion blur when stabilization is on and you're in low lighting. However, when I've tested that out, I found that it really doesn't do all that much. And the motion still has a problem there with stabilization on. So ultimately, my recommendation, if you want to have good stabilization and you're in really low lighting, you probably need to look at using an external gimbal or stabilizer. There are some good ones out there. I've linked to them in the description below. Most of them are around $100. I have tried out some, and they're great, but they kind of take away the enjoyment of having this tiny little camera that you can take anywhere in your pocket, because the stabilizers do take up a bit of space and room, even the small ones. So I try to make the GoPro work as is by tweaking the settings while still getting a good result. So we'll see what this footage from today looks like. For a while there, the breeze had disappeared, but the breeze is back now, and it feels kind of good, but it's kind of hot too at the same time. You know, it's 90-something degrees or getting close to it. So the breeze does feel good though when you're sweating. It's one of my favorite parts of this hike. AT gets really narrow here, so you got a pretty good drop off right down here to the river. And it looks like we've had some recent washouts down here. That bank is starting to give way a little. Local trail club will probably be along to do some work on this. I'm thinking they have to do quite a bit of work here each year after the thunderstorm season. This area sees a lot of downpours, I'm certain. What are you doing there? Are you warm?
No.
You're not warm? After about a mile from crossing the bridge, you come to the James River Face Wilderness. This wilderness area is one of the most unique. It's got, I believe, more than 700 different species of plants and a lot of different wildlife. And the AT goes quite a few miles through here. This becomes a rather rugged stretch of AT. From here on up, it's pretty much entirely uphill, all the way to Pettit's Gap, which is on the other side of Highcock Knob. And once you get to there, you get a little bit of a downhill before more uphill as the AT heads toward Apple Orchard Mountain. So once again, that moment in the hike when my hike gets quite a bit tougher. Not only did we start going uphill into the wilderness area, but I now have a 35-pound toddler in a 5-pound carrier on my back. 40 pounds, it does the body good. We have reached our turnaround point for today. It's been a great day to test out that functionality on the GoPro to see how well it does in low lighting. The ISO max set to 800 instead of 400, and it is very warm. It's getting hotter by the minute. For the little one, it's quite warm, so we can only stay out so long on days like today. But I think by the time we get back to the car, we'll have logged about 4 miles today on a hiking trail. So that's pretty good, and I'm satisfied with that. So far from what I see on here, changing the ISO max to 800 is giving better results. I'll ultimately not know until I get back to the studio and begin looking at this footage, but so far in the camera, it looks a lot better stabilized without the weird motion blur. And it also doesn't look to be too noisy. That's really my main concern with setting ISO 800, is that the footage could get too noisy. But so far, I don't really see any indication of that. GoPro, of course, claims that they will only use the higher ISO if it's necessary. In other words, the GoPro should prefer the lower ISO.